we're going to try to explain to you as it goes as best as we can. We're starting actually. There we go. We're in the game.
Looks like we're off and we're waking up in V's house and we're going out for a friendly foot race with Ruby here.
Ruby lost both of her races in the first race we've had in the tournament. We'll see how well she'll go this time.
For those who like to speedrun this game, it's a common joke that when you lose the race to Ruby, you might as well just reset. But I think here in this race, things might be a little different.
Maybe we're having a little problem on Omega's side. Oh, just a little bit of stream lag. We hope we're going to see it clear out.
Hopefully we'll get that resolved. Looks like Lewd had a little bit of trouble there reaching Ruby, but here we go.
Yeah, he fell at the beginning, before even the Ruby race, but... There we go, so just a little 10-second loss. It's not too bad. So now we're in the first section of the game, the floating keep. Even if it's only the first section of the game, there's still a lot of death possibilities on every save. And something that we're going to see a lot in this tournament is that every save can kill the players. So even at the beginning of the game, and keep saves has kind of a tendency to cost a lot of time if you die on them.
Well, it seems like, especially here at the beginning of the game, there's a lot of space in between saves. And so even though things aren't necessarily really difficult, if you do make a mistake, if you do take a fall, if you do take a lot of damage, it's a pretty costly reset to start over again.
Yeah, and here's one place where you can end up losing a lot of time, and it's the first damage boost, and Lewd got it perfectly, and it keeps going. So this damage boost will save about 5 seconds, and if you miss it, however, and you fall, it can be a 20-second loss. So I think it's important to talk about damage boost in this game because they're going to come up a couple times. It's pretty simple. When you take a hit, V gets tossed up a little bit in the air. And since in this game, when you jump, well, you don't lose your jump by walking off the platform. You can then jump at the height of how much the enemy tosses you up. And that allows you to go up higher than what the game expects you to be able to at that time. So you can save a lot of time in certain areas. So this one is a small one, about 5 seconds, but we're going to see one that cuts half a level in Veil 2, and another one that even skips a boss. So we're going to tell you when we get there.
So here's Lewd making his way through the grabby hand maze, and we picked up a little while ago the Flutter Feather, which allows us to get some good horizontal movement and combine that with our jumps to do some really interesting platforming. And here you'll see Lewd do a little trick at the start of the second portal where we're able to spawn some extra enemies early, and that saves some time on the cycles of the spawns for later during this fight, and just cuts out a bit of time on the run.
And looking at the PowerPoint to the right, I believe Omega's a little bit ahead of Lewd right now.
Yeah,
he got there about 5 seconds earlier than Lewd. So we're having a race right now.
So hopefully once that stream clears up, we should be able to see a nice race here that's pretty close between these two players.
Yep. Now we're on the first boss, quote-unquote. She's kind of an introduction to bosses, Miyugi. She doesn't really have much of a chance to kill the players. Her main trick is that between her attacks, she's invincible. And so the best weapon to defeat her is a Sloth, which deals 8 damage in a very quick burst, but has a very, very long charge time. I think it would be a good time to talk about weapons. If you would think, Cake?
Yeah, so there are 7 weapons in this game, and for the most part, you'll see players favor a weapon called Greed. It's the one that looks like it puts up a red circle or a white circle around the character. And it's a really high DPS weapon, but there are 6 other weapons, and skilled players will be changing between weapons fairly often, as it's very situational when you want to use them. And it can make a big difference for both combating enemies as well as bosses.
I don't know if you saw what Lewd tried there. He tried to do a very, very precise frame-perfect skip. To skip the turrets there. Sadly he missed it, but he kind of saved it well afterwards. A little bit of swag by Lewd. Oh, and sadly he fails the flutter going down and takes a death. He's having a little bit of problem on this section right now. This is like I said, even in the first section of the game, every save has a chance to kill the player.
And one thing to note about this entire section that Lewd just traversed through is that that whole place is on a big cycle from the very beginning to the very end. So if you play it really well, you can cut out some major time there. Lewd's been using some reset strats, though, so things are a little bit thrown off compared to what I'm used to myself. But now we're getting to the second boss. This is Pagora. And the thing about Pagora is you want to use this initial weapon here, Envy, to do a lot of damage right at the beginning. And then once that first attack is over, Pagora will choose from a list of various different attacks. It's kind of just a pool of RNG of what you get. And you've got to react accordingly.
Sadly here, Lewd got essentially the worst attack possible, Stomps, which is the slowest one. And does it fine though, and it's a kill at about 6 minutes 16. With that little kerfuffle with Ruby, it's not that bad of a start for Lewd. Whereas I have no idea where Omega is at this point, sadly. Okay, let's talk about the falling skip. So, oops, a little fail here. So what Lewd is doing here, he's loading another save so that he can accumulate his double jump before starting. Sadly, he didn't set his save right, so he was on a place where he only had a single jump. So when he tried to do the skip, he only had one jump.
Yeah, so you need to have a save set up so that you can have 2 jumps in order to escape the auto scroller here at the start of the falling memory. And looks like we got it. So we've got the glitch we like to friendly refer to as the Ruby backpack. Almost hits that spike, but here we are making our way, skipping a lot of the Veil 1 area as we head our way towards getting that double jump feather followed by the boss Electram.
Well, then there's another version of this skip that doesn't allow you to float for that section. It's about 10 seconds slower. But Lewd here got the good one.
And it's a very small difference between getting the better falling skip with the Ruby backpack versus the other one where you jump all the way out and just get control of normal V. But it can make a fairly good difference in time.
Yep. It's also pretty hard to be consistent at it, since you have what, like maybe 2 or 3 pixels where you can exit the falling area properly to get the backpack.
Yeah, it's a fairly precise trick to be able to pull off. I'm not sure exactly how much space you have, but it looks like Lewd unfortunately took a bit of damage there getting up to the Electram fight. Ideally, you want to reach this fight with almost full HP, and then you can defeat this boss and take a death warp to get back to the save that you took at the start of the mountain climb. But it looks like he's going to have to make that backwards trek at the end.
Indeed. That's about a 40 seconds or so time loss.
Yeah, it's a fairly big one. But of course, in a race, sometimes you just have to make the best with what you have. In a PvE attempt, you might be tempted to reset over something like that, but Lewd's going to do no such thing here. He's going to try to close up this Electram fight. Does it quite nicely.
That's well done. About 9-minute Electram. That's on par.
And here we're going to pick up the feather that allows us to now shoot the purity orbs. So now Lewd is going to have a ranged attack for his character. You can shoot little orbs. You can see the 3 dots above V's head. Each of those represents 1 bullet in the chamber, basically. And you are able to shoot 3 of them at a time, and then each orb will respawn slowly so that you can continue to output range damage. So that takes a big... It takes a lot to get used to with being able to use those orbs correctly to optimize your damage, but we'll see Lewd use it masterfully throughout this run.
So we're getting on the second part of the Veil here, Veil 2, which is a pretty interesting area in that this is the place we're going to do the second big skip with a damage boost, which is called, well, very, very well-named Veil 2 skip. And it's a hard one. It's a place that's probably going to stump a lot of our players during the tournament. Oh, Lewd takes a hit here before getting to the skip.
But have we mentioned that the platforming in this game is difficult? So Lewd failing that jump, that's actually a place that's very common for a lot of runners to die to. That what you have to do there is use your flutter and then your double jumps at the bottom of that pit, but you have to use them with a bit of precision. You've only got a couple of frames probably to re-jump there before you hit the spike, and so it can be a little bit tricky.
Yeah, jump too high and you hit the ceiling and fall, and jump too low and you hit the spike. So you have to be precise with your jump. Well, Lewd finally managed to get there, and we're finally getting to the section with the damage boost, Veil 2 skip. Let's see how he does.
So as Ziggy talked about before, the damage boost will raise you up into the air so that you can get a bit of extra height for your jumps. And by doing it right there, Lewd was able to cut out nearly half of the terrestrial veil platforming here. There's a lot more to be seen to the right of where he is, but you will not see it during this run.
What I'm reading the chat, seems to be audio issues.
Yeah, it sounds like we are getting music instead of the game audio.
Okay, yeah, the commentary is fine, it's just the game audio. It's not too bad.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, we got it on the first
try. What a boss. That is a very difficult trick to pull off. The newest skip found by Freezelow. Allows you to skip the troll cave with a damage boost as you trick the rock thrower into being able to throw a rock through the wall. It's very precise both for the setup as well as for the damage boost, so nice job.
Yes, and he's already at Amethyst. So basically her gimmick is pretty simple. She's going to chuck attacks at you. She has multiple elements she's trying to kill you with, and she's pretty good at it. But you can only deal 16 damage to her every time she uses an attack. So you need to try your best to do the maximum damage to her every time she attacks you, so that you can kill her in a decent time. She also has this huge laser that deals 90 damage to you, so it's pretty much a one-hit KO most of the time. And he's only taken 15 damage so far. I'm getting to the third phase now.
So one of the interesting parts about this fight is when Amethyst casts her fire attack, the fire kind of spreads out all over the floor, and then the area that you have to work with in order to dodge attacks and play aggressive at jumping to the boss it's going to be blocked by fire in different patterns every single time. So you have to play around that.
And a good kill on Amethyst. Oh, he took the save before Amethyst for safety. Something you can do is not take the save just before Amethyst, so when you reset, a little bit like the Electrum skip, is that you would return to the red save we just saw, and you save about 11 seconds there. But I think for at least a couple weeks, we're going to see runners try more safe strats to prevent a little bit of heartache in tough sections. And now we're getting to the grotto. The main gimmick of this area is these switches with a little electric symbol on them. If you shoot them, it takes lasers out. The lasers one-shot you, so you kind of have to take them out before you can move on. And they're on a pretty precise timing, so you have to move very quickly to prevent getting hit by them.
It's an area of the game that, when you initially play it, is very difficult because there's so many puzzles, and those puzzles require very precise movement to get through, and the timing is very tight. But with speedrunning and practice, you get to the point where it's just very satisfying to pull all of this off.
Like this one that he managed to do without slowing once, which is very, very hard to do. It's a very tight one. Spider Cave gets through fine. And sadly, we don't have any news on Omega stream. That's a shame.
It looks like he's in Vale too, though, so a bit behind at this point, but anything can still
Yeah,
happen.
about 3 minutes ago, though. So
True.
yep, a little fail on the flutter by Lewd. Not a big time loss here.
So what Lewd's doing right here is taking a shortcut beneath the minecart there. The normal path would be to go up and above and then take a save to drop down through this underwater maze of mines. But instead he's taken the shortcut to save just a little bit of time. It does make this save a lot more risky, though. So if you do take a death here, it's a very long and costly reset.
Yeah, since Lewd is going to skip that save as well, so it's a 3 saves in 1.
It's known as the save of shame, so good on Lewd for skipping that, deciding to not take shame to his name forever.
And we're entering DA. DA is the first boss where we start seeing the shooting mechanic a little bit more closely. Now, just rest assured, V runners are not the worst button mashers in the history of gaming. Just that the shots recharge about 1 every second. So DA is pretty much a DPS race in that you must try to shoot your orbs as quickly as you get them. If you're too slow, he's simply going to pin you to the wall at the end of the battle arena because he slowly goes to right, and then you just die because you ran out of time. But I don't think that's going to be a problem here. Lewd is doing very quick work out our little friend DA. Very good job.
So kind of a fun thing about this boss is as it pushes you farther to the right, you're on kind of a timer to defeat this boss. The farther you get right, eventually you're going to hit a pit of spikes that will kill you, as well as you have to dodge, or you have to snipe those bombs to stop them from putting the fire on the ground, as that really restricts your space on the arena, similar to what Amethyst did before, but this is a little bit more extreme.
Also, we didn't talk about his enrage. That happened about at 40%, but Lewd handled it very, very well, and he's...
That's a flawless, so nice job there.
Nice job. A flawless with letting green fire go onto the ground is pretty good as well. That doesn't happen often.
And so here is going to be a segment that, depending on how you play it, you can decide as a runner to skip a lot of these saves to save some time. Most of this platforming with practice isn't too difficult, but Lewd's taken 1 safety save there. We'll see if he goes for another one.
He skips the second one, but he used the swag shark strat, so we can forgive him for taking a save. Oh, it's going to cost him though to skip the second save.
Yeah, the windmill spiky blades, they do a lot of damage in this game, and so one thing you do not want to mess up is taking too many hits from one of those.
And a second dead in the same way. It's just a question of timing when you jump into the minecart. And sadly he's been just a little bit off, maybe half a second too early. No more.
I love this determination, though, to not take the safety save, despite having died there twice. That's pretty gutsy.
Well, 5 seconds, 5 seconds.
So actually, in the speedrun, what we do on that screen with the underwater minecart is we do skip the initial switch that would disable the lasers, and we jump ahead and activate another one for 2 of the laser traps. And so doing that actually simplifies the puzzle by quite a bit and just makes it easier to execute.
Indeed, it's one of the, well, I wouldn't say hardest rooms casually, but for the growth, it was probably the one that stumps the most players for a long time.
I've definitely seen a lot of players doing casual playthroughs be stuck on this area, and the minecarts and lasers combined makes for some pretty tricky stuff.
A little bit of a bonk here by Lewd, and he has to start again on the minecart section.
It should be noted that you can actually opt to stay inside of the minecart for some of this and slide underneath the spikes, but it's just easier to jump outside of it and flutter underneath before jumping back in.
Yeah, the slide is pretty precise. You miss it, you're going to head bump pretty quickly. No, you go ahead, you can.
So now we're on the screen here with all these plants that are shooting at you. There's actually an achievement you can get here called Drive-By, where you can destroy all the plants on the way, which is a fairly tricky one to figure out the first time. We won't be going for that here because it isn't any percent run, but it is still a fun thing to note if you do plan on playing this game at all in the future.
It's a pretty interesting achievement to get on Doomed, which is the mode of the game where if you take one hit, you die. That's a pretty hard one. And we're getting to Terravine. So, Terravine's gimmick is pretty simple. He's going to do 3 attacks, and after that he's going to charge a laser that will immediately kill the player, unless you stun a Terravine by sending a minecart his way. And what you're trying to do is deal as much damage as you can between these laser attacks. And that's a lot of damage for the first 3 attacks by Lewd. Very good Terravine fight.
I'm a little surprised you didn't throw all 3 minecarts at Terravine. You do, I think, in a case like this where you have a lot of damage, you want to throw the 3rd minecart, as it does do a significant amount of HP damage to the boss. But nice fight, cleans it up. Looks like he's set. Also, looks like we are starting to get a better picture of what's going on with omegahamatt. He just finished up the Dark Annihilator fight and is about 1 area behind, but still on okay-ish pace.
Yep, there's a big chance that something bad happens to Lewd, and Omega could very well catch him up.
And especially the final boss of this game, which is, it should be noted, is extremely and notoriously difficult. And if you die at the very end of that boss fight, you can lose minutes on your run, and it's very easy for someone to catch back up in a race situation. We've seen it happen many times before. But anyway, we are now here with Lewd in the Underworld, which is one of my favorite areas of the game.
Just for the music.
the music, the platforming, I love a lot of the stuff that happens here. It's also very difficult for the speedrun. This is one of the places that I would say kills the most runs. But here we are on this portal. This portal is a little bit more complicated than the other ones we saw earlier in the game. We do have the skeletons, which they lock onto your position and then do a quick dash at you, so you need to manipulate them to do what you want. But wow, he got the fast kill on that skeleton. Shark would be proud. And he picked up the feather, which we will be using to pick up wings and then dash very quickly throughout much of this area.
I think we can talk about a little mechanic that we haven't brushed up before, because it's the first time that we see the dash feathers. So the last feather that Lewd got by beating the portal is for the little wings that you see on screen. When you press the flutter button, when you touch one of these wings, you will get a very quick dash in a direction. And that can get interesting because there's a little quote-unquote glitch that you can do with it, in which if you flutter immediately after using one of these feathers, then you can get an enormous amount of height, and it's going to be used to great effect a little bit later in the library skip. So Lewd is doing a very good job getting through this underworld, actually. It's been really smooth.
Yeah, he's been playing
already a Krat.
Very cleanly. I really liked especially how he executed those last few rooms. Craterack here is a really fun boss. You are constantly being moved in one direction, and there are moving platforms that you have to stay on top of to keep from falling into the fire. And many of Craterack's attacks push you away from the boss in order to dodge them safely, but then he does have the one attack with the rocks where you want to be close so that you can get a setup to do the most damage possible. Lewd was able to get a couple of hits off with the rocks, so that's pretty good.
Now we're getting to the second phase. Basically, Craterack will attack you from the left, then from the top, then from the right, and if the fight gets there, again from the top, and then it starts again from there. So it's a non-ending chase. Well, I think it ends after 32 cycles, right?
But there is some number, but I do not remember what that number is. I just know that for a long time we wondered if the maze was actually limitless, and then somebody found out that no, after a while the maze does stop. It comes to in a spot where you basically fall out of bounds and just die. So
20 HP left on Lewd, and he gets the kill. Well done.
So Lewd finishes up Craterak while Matt finishes up Terravine. Still about an area apart.
Yep, he's keeping pace.
So one thing that's kind of interesting about this section that Lewd is on now is that the bottom, this is a place where you have to pick up multiple keys in order to unlock the doors later to advance. And so we're going to be taking 3 different forks in the road here. The bottom path is not on any kind of a cycle. It doesn't really matter when you go there. The other 2 you want to do later because a lot of the strategies you will use here are cycle based. So he's going to reset to do the middle path here and try to get around these worms as quickly as possible, and he's doing a great job.
Ooh, sadly waited a little bit too much before using the dash, and only fluttered. And now he's not moving.
And it looks like in the chat that he's working on some kind of audio issues.
Oh, I see.
And that's going to let omegahamatt catch up a little bit here. He's already a good part of the way through Underworld. Lewd gets that second key and should be resetting here in a second to go and get the top key as well.
That was a pretty good portal by Omega as well.
Ooh, Lewd taking a costly death there, halfway up the trek to the second key.
I wonder if he's going to take the save. He's been using a few safety strats, like only 2 minecarts on Terravine, things like that. Oh, no, he skips the save. And he's going for it. And I have lost video, actually.
Looks like things are being refreshed.
So here we are back with Lewd. I don't know if the viewers saw AC skip, but sadly we skipped the boss here.
Yeah, it looks like that unfortunately happened. But after the 3 keys that Lewd picked up earlier, there is a 4th key that you have to get, and then you can fight a boss. But in the speedrun, we're able to use a damage boost to skip over it. And we're going to see, we just saw another damage boost there from Lewd, and now he's going for the library skip, which is one of the more impressive skips in the run. He's going to use, yeah, there it is, the feathered dash followed by a well-timed flutter.
Just a little bit of height missing. That was very, very close. He's going to try again.
If you don't do this skip here, you have to go to the right, and then there's a section of the game where you have to get past patrolling guards, and it's kind of a slow one, and so that's a good 20-second time save doing the library skip that Lewd just did there.
And he got it on the second go. That was well done. Getting to the elevator. This is pretty much the hardest area on the way to Miyuki 2. It's a pretty interesting section. It's an auto-scroller, and it's not very often that you're going to see an interesting section that's an auto-scroller, but it's very difficult to do it. I believe we have a little bit of a problem on Lewd's stream now.
But Matt, in the meantime, is making his way again through the second part of the Underworld, going to get that middle path key, trying to get the cycle right on the worms here, and we'll see how he handles it. Ooh, went a little bit too low there for that dash.
That feather dash to usually what you would do in that part is kill the quote-unquote strawberry, and then go up there. And from there on, go to the right. But we don't have time for that, so we use Feather Dash. But it's quite a precise one. If you wait just a little bit too much, you hit the spikes. If you go too fast, you hit the strawberry and fall.
So now we're seeing on Lewd's end the other part of the elevator here that is very intimidating, especially for a first playthrough of figuring out how to get through all those bullets and all these black holes, which, by the way, any of these objects here would kill the player in one hit. And then you have to duel with the two skeletons at the very top. Remember, these skeletons lock on to your position, and you're suspended on a tiny little platform, so it's fairly tricky to figure out. But Lewd has practiced it quite a bit, he's good at it, and now he's making his way to the next boss of the game, which is the second encounter with Myogi.
So Myogi 2 is a little bit of an interesting fight. She's not immune, like the first time you meet her between her attacks, but her shield is up temporarily. Every time you hit her, her shield goes up for a period of time. As Lewd hits Myogi, that's a funny sentence to say. It's just you will see a little yellow bar go up and then slowly deplete. When it's depleted, her shield is down and you can hit her. If you hit her while her shield is up, she heals, actually. You heal her for 1 damage instead of damaging her. Now, Lewd is not going for the skip here. He's going to fight her normally.
And that's just fine. The skip does save quite a bit of time, but if you go for the skip and fail, then it actually costs you around 10 seconds. So deciding to not go for the skip is absolutely fine, especially in a race situation, if you're just trying to play safe and stay ahead.
Also, sometimes to set it up, you have to sometimes dodge some RNG that can get weird with the big fireballs and things like that. So you tend to die more often going for the skip than not. But after the enrage, she spawns a skull that will follow you around, but you can shoot at and send away. That deals kind of a lot of damage. For every, I would say, 10 frames that it's on you, you take 5 damage. And immediately Lewd takes it away, and you should be scot-free for the rest of the fight.
Yeah, it's one of those things in this game is that the fire, whenever you get touched by a flame of some kind, you take fire damage. It burns you slowly for about 5 damage every tick. And the skull is able to do that to you, so you do not want to get touched by the skull. It can very rapidly turn this fight around and give Myogi the upper hand.
Indeed. Now Lewd has only 25 HP. So it's a little bit of a tense moment here. But very, very well handled for this phase, and Myogi 2 goes down. Well done.
Nice job. It looks like, unfortunately, Matt missed the library skip there, so he's going to be trying to go back and do it again. Meanwhile, Lewd's making his way through this room full of a lot of spike balls that's kind of tricky to execute correctly, but with 2 damage boosts like that, he's able to get through there no problem.
And we're getting to the room with the spawners. It's pretty much the only moment where we're going to see that enemy. You just spawn little worms at you that deal kind of a lot of damage.
Oh, I like that strat of just tanking a hit and then using your iframes to get through.
Yeah, it's perfect. You get there with 70 HP, then you take only 30 from the worm instead of 35 from the main enemy, and then when you're in the other room you have 40 HP, so you can take a hit while you're cleaning up the last spawner without a little mistake on the code.
And so far in both of our races in this tournament, the person in the lead has messed up that code. There must be some kind of jinx going on.
I'll try to get there behind then, just so I don't look too foolish. But Lewd is going to wait here. There is a cycle that you can get here that is called the Ooga skip, because everything is called a skip in V. It's kind of a meme. Sadly, he could not get it, and he just had to wait for the safe timing.
So meanwhile,
Oh, you can go ahead, Cake.
Just saying, Matt's going up the elevator now, while Lou is going down through the chambers and running from the spiked ceiling. This part's a lot of fun to execute.
Yep, you have to touch the levers very quickly. If you don't touch the levers, the ceiling will crush you. And you have to do this part extremely quickly.
I think we're trying to resync the video here, so things are being paused for just a minute.
And that's fair. I like what Lewd is doing for this one. I think he's consistently going for the safe strat. He's doing his best to not die instead of trying to be extremely fast.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, I don't know if he's listening to the stream, but he must know if he does, he knows he's ahead. So there's no reason really to rush anything.
One thing that's quite nice about the chambers is there's not a lot of RNG that plays into the platforming here. It's mostly just about doing the jumps and playing consistently, being confident. And I think Lude should be just fine as he gets through this.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if it's back on for you, Cake. I'm still paused.
Still paused for me. I will try to refresh.
Yeah, reading the chat. I would be hyped for another GDQ run from Shark. It's been over 3 years, and Shark's run at GDQ. If you want to go watch a good speed run of Wings of V, that was very, very, very well done for the time, because a lot of strats kind of improved with the time. You can go on YouTube and try to dig in the GDQ run from Shark on Wings of V, because that was very, very impressive. He did a lot of very tough tricks in that run. It's pretty impressive.
He also managed to bring up sticky keys.
Oh, right. I had forgotten that one. Yeah, that's true.
I would say bringing up sticky keys in the middle of a run at a GDQ event is a feat in and of itself. And then the fact he was able to recover and play a very just well done run, it was pretty impressive.
Yep, agreed. So it seems like we have a little bit of a network issue right now. It takes a moment to fix. So we're gonna try to fill in some time. How are you doing, Cake? How's your day been?
It's been fantastic because I've been really, really hyped up for this tournament. And just watching the race last night, seeing Wings of V played like this in 2018 is very exciting to me. This game had a very active speedrunning community for about a year, and then it's kind of dipped down a bit. People still run it, but not quite as much as before. But I'm seeing a big revival right now, and because I love this game so much, I'm hyped.
Oh yeah, I'm hyped. Like, I'm one of those that started streaming the game the first. Like when the game just came out, B-Rex was running it, Cosmic Sense was running it, and then people that kind of left the game, like Mistakel Chen and Uga, and I was running it. Then I kind of left the game because I got a job and I ended up working a lot. And coming back to it 2.5 years later, I'm having so much fun. I really miss this game, and I'm really, really glad we're seeing so much activity in the V discords and things like that right now.
Absolutely,
it's really fun.
It's just one of those games where when you take a break from it and come back, it seems to get even more